Something else you said you'd had it with are minorities in ICE.
I mean, that connects to this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, not only do you have no moral compass, and how many times have you seen these guys? They've got their masks on, so you can't see their whole face. But what you can see, it's like a brown skin tone and a dude who looks like his last name is probably like Lopez or Hernandez or something. It's like, what is wrong with you? Not only do you not have morality, apparently you don't have self-preservation. I mean, these people hate you. They hate you. They hate your family. They hate your kids. They hate your future grandkids. They don't think you belong here. You're not a quote unquote heritage American. You're never going to belong. And you're the one implementing the violent force against your own community. I just can't wrap my head around that.
Boy. So we got to continue our coverage of Ghetto Democrat Jasmine Crockett, who currently has the Democrats in a full-blown panic behind closed doors because she has declared that she's running for Senate in Texas, right? She believes that she can win statewide in a race against a Republican in a red state. Now, we're going to see, right, if Jasmine Crockett's delusions actually become reality. But as of right now, it doesn't seem as if she's off to a hot start because she's already made comments that, in my opinion, are going to take her campaign, right? And we're going to talk more about these comments because CNN is confronting her on these comments that she's made. But first, I want to talk about how Republicans actually helped push Jasmine Crockett into the Texas Senate race, right? They actually goaded her, tricked her into getting into the race, right? Into believing she actually has a chance, okay, of winning. And that is consistent with the fact that you currently have Republicans, like, for example, Karl Rove, celebrating the fact that Jasmine Crockett is in the race.
Let's be clear. The early coverage of this is that inside the Democrats, this is going to be a battle between the left and the center. That's not going to be the case. It is not left versus moderate. It is nutty versus not nutty. James Tallarico, the other Democrat in the race, is as liberal as Jasmine Crockett is. It's just that he's not as nutty as she is. She served in the Texas House for one term. She was known for giving inflammatory statements, generally only to reporters, and for achieving virtually nothing. And she has been that way in the U.S.
Okay, a couple of things here. Colin Allred's a Democrat, too. So he gets ahead of it by, I think, 2 hours yesterday.
Yep.
A lot of Democrats liked him, too, all right? So he gets out of the race and announces it this way.
Going through a bruising primary, and in Texas we have a runoff, and we would certainly have a runoff in this case, was not in the best interest of the state or the party. I'm friends with Jasmine. I've known her for some time. And I think it's important that we go into November with a unified party.
Okay, that's his position. Here's the deal on Axios with Chuck Schumer. The Senate Minority Leader and the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee probably could have tried to keep Crockett out if they were strong, but they're not. They're the weakest they've ever been. We've been talking about them being weak for several years now.
Yeah.
Are they still that way?
Please, yes, absolutely. Schumer's ability to, raise money is still there, but his ability to affect who's in and who's out in a Democratic primary is gone. In fact, count on it, both Tallarico and Crockett will say that Schumer should not be Senate leader, and then they'll be hoping that he will shower them with cash in the general election, which he's capable of doing. But look, let's be clear. You'll notice she gave her talk off of a teleprompter. That's about the only time we're going to see her under control. She is capable of saying the most extraordinary thing. Our governor, who is paralyzed in a freak accident as a young man, is in a wheelchair, and she, belittles him for that. And she is capable of doing that kind of thing every day in every way possible. It's going to be highly entertaining.
Yeah. So meanwhile, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, Senate Republicans' campaign arm, reportedly worked for months to get Representative Jasmine Crockett to throw her hat into the ring for the Lone Star State's 2026 Senate race. According to notices, Reese Gorman, Republican Senate campaign arm, has actively worked behind the scenes to encourage Representative Jasmine Crockett to jump into the Senate Democratic primary in Texas, believing she will be the easiest opponent to beat. The GOP, per Gorman, view both declared Democrats already competing for their party's nomination, Colin Aldred and James Tallarico, as, quote, formidable. Republican insiders don't share the same view of Crockett. Quote, the National Senate Republican Senatorial Committee put out a poll in July with Crockett's name included, which showed her as the leading Democrat in a hypothetical matchup. When we saw the results, we were like, okay, we got to disseminate this far and wide. A source familiar with the process told Notice. The fact that Crockett was included in the poll was no accident. In June, news broke that Texas Democrats Colin Allred, James Tallarico, former Representative Beto O'Rourke, and Representative Joaquin Castro met to discuss the 2026 election. Operatives at the NRSC realized that Crockett, whose political stock had been rising, wasn't included in that meeting and also hadn't been included in any credible poll, so they decided to change that. Following the NRSC's polls, other surveys began to include Crockett and showed similar results. She was surging in the primary. The NRSC then worked to amplify those polls and is taking credit for helping, quote, orchestrate the pile-on of these poll numbers to really drive that news cycle and that narrative that Jasmine Crockett was surging in Texas, the source said. A number of Republicans, including Karl Rove and Senator John Cornyn, who is running for re-election and could face off against Crockett next fall, have celebrated Crockett's entrance into the race. Yeah, so what you have here is a Republican operation to gaslight Jasmine Crockett into running, right? And it seems to have worked, right? So basically, there wasn't much talk about Jasmine Crockett running for Senate until Republicans started putting out polls showing that Jasmine Crockett could actually win the Democrat primary, right? And that her stock in Texas was rising. And they did that, again, to gaslight her into running because they feel as if she's the most beatable, right? And based off the polls that I've seen, the general election polls I've seen, that is true. She is the most beatable, okay? And now that she's in the race, like I told you guys at the beginning of this video, she's showing us why is it that Republicans believe that she's so beatable. And this interview right here on CNN is a great example of what I'm talking about because, once again, she's going to get embarrassed over some things that she said before in the past that, in my opinion, are going to hinder her campaign. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
In our politics lead today, it was something of a down-to-the-wire decision for Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett to run for re-election to her House seat or shoot for the U.S. Senate. The Congresswoman announced her bid for Senate on Monday, joining an already somewhat crowded Democratic field. Joining us now is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So congratulations on your announcement.
Thanks.
Your official announcement is just a video of you and an image of you while insults of President Trump of you play in the background. Why that decision? I mean, one of your opponents, Tallarico, he had a video, him with constituents, him with Texans. Why you solo?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to do something different. Because number one, in order to flip the state of Texas, we're going to have to do something that we've never done. So I wanted to stay on brand with the fact that we would be different. I also wanted people to understand who the president sees as a real threat, and it is me. He also made it clear a number of times that he sees me as a leader. Those are his words, not mine. And so I wanted to do that. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to do a real announcement with actual people, nothing that was staged. I wanted the real people, and so it had to be in that moment. So I also wanted to make sure that we delivered a full speech that had all the substance there. So on that same day, if you were paying attention or if you were interested, you got the full meat of what it is that I want to do as the next senator in the state of Texas, as well as I did this with the people right there at home in my district.
So, wow, she's so dumb. She's so dumb. She's like, well, I made this ridiculous campaign video, right? I mean, that's probably one of the most embarrassing opening campaign videos I've ever seen in my life, right? You have the president insulting you, but she's so dumb, so stupid that she doesn't realize that President Trump is calling her a leader of the Democrat Party because she makes the Democrats look bad, right? She turns off more people than she turns on, okay? Let's be real, okay? That's what Jasmine Crockett doesn't realize. So, of course, he wants Jasmine Crockett to be seen as the leader for the same reason that Republicans went out of their way to gaslight her into getting into the race, because at the general electorate, right, at that level, statewide, yeah, she's going to be a lot easier to beat than a more sane Democrat, right? Which, you know, I'm not sure if a sane Democrat actually exists nowadays, but especially in a state like Texas, yeah, she's going to be a lot easier to beat, okay, than somebody that is closer to the center and closer to sanity, right? And also doesn't turn off more than 50% of voters based off race, okay? And I mean this in the sense that her being a black woman is not the problem. It's her anti-white rhetoric. That's really what's going to hold her back, to be honest with you.
So last night you told Laura Coates on this network that you don't need to get all the Trump voters in order to win the Senate seat, assuming you win the Democratic nomination.
No, she said she doesn't need Trump voters, period, right? That's what she actually said. Don't try to soften it up, CNN. Say what she said. She said she doesn't need Trump voters, right? No, I don't need them. That's what she said.
We should note President Trump won Texas pretty handily by about 14 percentage points. So you don't need every Trump voter, but you need a big chunk of them. Explain the math to me. How does any Democrat, but especially one who is progressive and outspoken, how do you win over Trump voters?
So this is what I want to tell you about. There's two things that we need to talk about that are separate things that I think both of them are necessary to win. Number one, we actually have to turn out more voters. If you do the research on the state of Texas, we typically rank the lowest in voter turnout, period, in the country. We've got to get that up. I want to say the most recent one that I remember, maybe a little over 50% of people turned out. When we looked at Georgia and we saw Georgia go blue, what they were able to do is they were able to get more people to participate. So that's number one. So for me, it was always about expanding the electorate. Number two, this is a great talking point that we've heard over and over and over, that maybe you need to sound like a Trumper so you can get Trumpers to be on board. But what we know is that there were Trump and Mondami voters. There were Obama and Trump voters. There were AOC and Trump voters. So a lot of people want to distill this down into something as simple as, oh, it's progressive or it's this. But the reality is that people vote for who they believe in. They vote for the people that they believe really care about bettering their lives. And what we know is apparent is that a lot of people have been turned off by Trump. When we look at Tennessee, I'm not asking you to look far north or over in California. When you look at the red state of Tennessee, he won that seat by over 20 points, yet it came within single digits. When you look at Mississippi, they flipped 2 Senate seats. When you look at Georgia on November 4th, they elected 2 Democrats statewide. So what I am saying is people are finally saying, you know what, even those that voted for Trump, because there's plenty that regret it. And I think that those people would be more willing to listen at this point. But I think you've got to expand the electorate, and you got to talk to anybody who actually says, you know what, he played us.
Let me tell you.
All right, let me explain why Jasmine Crockett is delusional here, right? The holes in her argument, right? Her arguments are essentially that, one, Trump turns people off, as if Jasmine Crockett doesn't turn people off, right? The difference between Trump turning people off and Jasmine Crockett turning people off is that Trump actually has appeal to make up for that with hardcore support. I don't think Jasmine Crockett has that type of appeal that can offset the amount of voters that she's going to turn off. I actually believe that Jasmine Crockett, with her rhetoric, she's going to motivate a lot of people to vote against her, and she's going to motivate more people to vote against her than are going to vote for her. And the reason why I say this is because Jasmine Crockett, she already is causing a whole lot of infighting on the left over the fact that they're individuals who don't really see her as an AOC. Remember, she said, well, people voted for AOC and Trump. And it's like, you don't have that same legitimacy, right? Like, you don't have that same stamp that AOC has, right, on the left that would give you that type of clout, okay? And again, we know this because, again, you have people who are going after Jasmine Crockett for not being as progressive as they would like her to be, even though she is a racial and a social progressive for sure, certainly. But when it comes to other issues, she's not as progressive as the lunatics would like. And again, that's causing a lot of infighting within Democrat circles and within liberal circles / progressive circles already, because she doesn't have that type of juice, in the sense that she's much closer to Kamala Harris than she is Bernie Sanders.
This is a message to everybody in Texas that will be voting on the U.S. Senate primary for the Democrat. Now, right now you have Jasmine Crockett, very fiery lady, African American. You know how they are. You don't want to get them upset because they're going to get you. And, she draws a lot of attention because she really be laying into Donald Trump and the Republicans, and it makes for good sound bites. And then you have the more softer spoken James Tellerico, who is running in the primary as a Democrat for that Senate seat to challenge the sitting Republican. Well, here's the problem. Crockett, while she sounds super progressive and you would think that she would support Palestinians, etc., she doesn't. She actually takes money from AIPAC, a lot of it apparently. According to the research that I could find, she took a paid trip to Israel in the midst of the genocide. That's pretty disgusting right there.
You know what really bothers me about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett running for Senate in Texas is not the fact that she ran this really embarrassing, incredibly narcissistic ad that basically is just about herself, or the fact that Texas very much is still a red state, so it's unlikely that a Democrat is going to win for the Senate there. What actually really bothers me about it is how willing progressives are, my fellow people on the left, to quickly abandon everything you claim to stand for just because you like someone's personality. I saw this article and I was like, is this a fucking joke? Jasmine Crockett's bid for the Senate is the latest sign of a Tea Party style revolt for progressives? Yeah, you can't call it a Tea Party revolt and then run like a standard corporate Democrat pretending it's an insurgency. Democrats literally do this every fucking cycle. Stop falling for it, because voters are angry. Every time you lie to them and con them, you lose more permanently. Proving once again that you've learned shit from the last election. You can cope and seethe about it all you want, but the fact of the matter is, Jasmine Crockett is a very standard conservative corporate Democrat. Just because she's good at trolling Trump and she's got a good media presence doesn't make her a progressive.
Until she tells us her stance on is not real, I'm not voting for her. But these are the same people that was in her comment section saying that she should be president 2028. Y'all not know that those talking points come from is not real themselves? Benjamin said it himself, that the weapons changes over time. What are the weapons? Social media. Let's be clear. You wasn't going to vote for Jasmine Crockett because you just wasn't going to vote for Jasmine Crockett. Even though she and her team has announced several times they do not take AIPAC money, which is usually y'all's second pivot when the first one doesn't work. She has made it clear that she doesn't take money from that country. That won't be good enough. You will want her heart, lung, and liver. Since that will forever be the talking point for people that don't want to vote for black candidates. At this point, the Democratic Party needs to formulate their own AIPAC organization. They also need to formulate their own bot forms. Elon showed us that most of the people that supported the right, specifically this regime, came from other countries. Nothing Jasmine Crockett would say moving forward would satisfy these people because they was never going to vote for her to begin with. Stay around with your life like you did the presidency if you want to. Please do share on what platform that you see and hear that Jasmine Crockett supported is not real. I want y'all to peep. The same people that saying that they will not vote for Jasmine Crockett are the same people that was trying to force Marjorie Taylor Greene in our faces.
I'm going to need people to start living in the real world. Jasmine Crockett announced her run for Senate, and all of the Never Kamala bots, all of the Never Kamala leftists, they're dusting off their platforms, they're stretching their Twitter fingers, getting ready to spread the new bullshit narrative against another black woman candidate. There's an old clip of Jasmine Crockett talking about Israel and how we in the United States have a relationship with Israel, blah, blah, blah. And you see people in those comments, I use the word people lightly because again, like 75% of them are fucking bots. You see comments underneath the post talking about oh, I'm so disappointed. Oh, forget it. I thought I loved Jasmine. Oh, never mind. I'm not voting for her. I won't vote for anybody who takes AIPAC money. First of all, Jasmine Crockett has never taken AIPAC money. That's number one. And number two, what the fuck do you mean you're so surprised? What the fuck do you mean that this is shocking to you? Anybody out here who is surprised by Jasmine Crockett's pro-Israel stance or pro-allyship with Israel stance clearly does not follow fucking politics. And that is the issue that we have in this country. We have a bunch of super vocal people who don't actually follow the politics that they want to be so fucking vocal about. Because what do you mean you're surprised that a Democrat supports Israel and Israel's right to statehood? What the fuck do you mean? Have you been paying attention? Of course you haven't, because you don't actually watch politics. American foreign policy supports Israel.
And this is why I would not, in Jasmine Crockett's case, apply this logic that, well, in these off-year elections, we're seeing Democrats win in places that they otherwise shouldn't win. Like, for example, we just saw Democrats pull off a win in Miami. A Democrat hasn't been elected mayor in Miami for like 30 years, right? Yes, we're seeing Democrats overperform in off-year elections, right? However, what Jasmine Crockett is not calculating is the fact that next year is not going to be the same environment as right now. Okay, and I have plenty of reasons to believe this. One, I believe that the economy is going to get better, right? I think that the economy is going to be in a much better place. I think that inflation is going to be lower. I think that the supply side stimulus is going to kick in. I'm actually going to do a video about this, a more in-depth video about the economy moving forward, going into the new year later today. So I'm going to talk more about this. I believe we're going to be in a much better place when it comes to the economy. The GOP, they're going to actually campaign like it is a general election. Going into the midterms, right? This is not something that we've seen, okay, during these off-year elections, which Democrats always do. They always do well in these elections, okay? This is not unusual what we're seeing, okay? They started performing well back in April before Trump could basically do anything. So a lot of what you're seeing in these off-year elections is that, yes, Democrats are mad that Trump won. So you have Democrats who are on the verge of essentially dying, right? Their whole party dying, their own life support. They're desperate. So they have their voters mobilized already. President Trump and the Republicans, they don't have their voters mobilized right now. So I think that the midterms is going to be a different environment. Does that mean that, Democrats are going to lose? No, I'm just skeptical of this idea that there's going to be a blue wave. I think it's more likely that there's going to be a blue trickle. Maybe Democrats take back the House, barely. But I think that Republicans likely are going to keep the Senate. And again, the reason why is because you're going to have lunatics like this who are going to be running in the general election, right? If Jasmine Crockett actually wins the primary, that is. But I think that this assumption that because you're seeing Democrats overperform right now, that means they're going to overperform in the midterms, or that things are going to stay the same, I think is a mistake. I would not just assume that to be the case, okay? I think things are going to get better. I personally believe that the Republicans are actually going to get their shit together, okay? Because these off-year elections have actually served as a warning that, hey, GOP, you got to get voters mobilized. You got to get people on the ground. This is why you're now seeing Trump starting to hold rallies, right? You're starting to see the GOP mobilize. If they mobilize going into the midterms and the economy gets better, we also got to figure out something when it comes to the Hispanics who are pissed off about these mass deportations, because that's also a thing, right? That is a thing that people have to acknowledge that, hey, because the mass deportations are happening, you do have some liberal Hispanics who are pissed off about this, and some Hispanics who are more independent, maybe even right-leaning, who don't like how far it's going. That doesn't mean we should stop doing it. It just means that we need to acknowledge that this is a real thing and plan accordingly. Yeah, I believe that if the economy gets better and Trump rallies the base like we know that he can do, we're going to be in a different environment. It's not going to be the same environment. Right now, again, GOP voters are not mobilized at all, and they're not turning out to vote, which is the reason why Democrats are overperforming. It's because GOP turnout is low. I don't believe that that's going to be the same environment going into the midterms if the Trump administration, if the Republicans do what they need to do, right? Mainly, again, rally the base, educate the voters on the wins, because we do have solid wins to talk about and to campaign on. The reality is that I don't think the GOP or Trump really has done a great job at articulating these wins and, again, rallying the base behind the fact that things are happening, right? And the country is headed in a better direction. We are in a better situation today than we were under Joe Biden. But again, with the current media environment, it's hard to push that message through because of propaganda from the media and because of the fact that Trump's economic policies have not been in place for enough time for people to actually see the long-term results, right? So again, we're going to see. I just think that her logic here is misguided.
Let me ask you about a quote that you've made that has some Democrats worried about your ability to win statewide. In a December 2024 Vanity Fair profile, you talked about, quote, and I'm going to read a lot of the quote just to put it in the context, quote, all the complexities within the Latino community. The immigration thing has always been something that has perplexed me about this community. It's basically like, I fought to get here, but I left y'all where I left y'all, and I want no more y'all to come here. If I wanted to be with y'all, I would stay with y'all, but I don't want y'all coming to my new home. It almost reminds me of what people would talk about when they would talk about kind of like slave mentality and the hate that some slaves would have for themselves. It's almost like a slave mentality that they have. Now, about the time that was published last year, around 1 million Latino voters in Texas were voting for Trump. Do they all have slave mentality?
No, and that's not what that said at all, to be clear. It did not say that every Latino has that type of mentality.
No, but the ones that vote for people who believe in strong or Trump's immigration policies.
So I don't believe that the people that voted for Trump believe in what they're actually getting.
Wow.
That is number one. What Trump said is that he was going to kick out the bad guys. And that's what I was talking about. I've been down to the border. I've been down to South Texas. I've campaigned down there. And so I am talking about exactly what was going on when I was down there on behalf of the Ghetto campaign. In fact, when he was running for governor, I was sent as a surrogate. And I said, talk to me about what is going on. Why is it that they believe that they can win Latinos down here? Like, I don't understand what's happening. And there were people that were saying that they had fought and they had done everything the right way, and that there were bad people that were coming that were doing it the wrong way. And so they were saying, no, we left. And I mean, when you think about people that are leaving asylum, they are leaving areas and situations that they feel like are harmful to them. So yes, they're like, no, I don't want to be in this dangerous situation. And that's what I meant. But at the same time, I knew what Trump meant, because Trump had a record. Trump had a record of locking up kids and putting them in cages. So I knew what Trump meant. And so that's why it wasn't making sense to me. And ultimately right now, I just came from a joint hearing that we were having on the Senate side. It's the Senate as well as the House. The first time I've had a joint hearing ever since I have been in the House. And I was listening to Latino American citizens that have been arrested by this regime. Some of those people may have voted for Trump. I don't know. But they agree that what he's doing now is wrong. And it's about right versus wrong and not right versus left. And he sold them a bag of goods. And I knew that that's what he was selling because I knew his record.
All right, Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that is a adequate explanation for calling Trump supporting Latinos individuals with a slave mentality, right? Saying that they have a slave mentality. I'm not sure exactly what she said there. That was a Kamala Harris word salad. I believe the point that she was trying to make is that, well, I guess Latinos have been tricked, right? And my response to that is that, well, I mean, listen, if you're a Latino person and you voted for the mass deportations, you voted for Trump to get out the bad guys, that is what he's doing, right? He's delivering on that. Now, when it comes to, asylum seekers who actually aren't legitimate asylum seekers, and other individuals as well, too, who may not have committed a violent act, we can't allow all those people into the country. That's just the reality of the situation. And if you are upset about Trump going after those individuals, then you need to be upset with Democrats who have fought Trump tooth and nail when it comes to protecting illegal immigrant criminals, because we could go and get the bad guys a lot easier if Democrats actually allowed us in their jails. If they cooperated with the Trump administration the same way that they cooperated with Obama, then it would be different. Tom Homan warned Democrats time and time again before the mass deportation started that, hey, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. We don't want to have to go into neighborhoods and round up the criminals, because that means that we have to round up everybody who is with the criminals as well too, right? If they're here illegally, then, hey, they got to go, right? And there are people who will get caught up if you're hanging around illegals, right? You're going to get caught up. We don't want to have to do that. So let us in your jails, work with us to get the bad guys, and we don't have to go through that. Democrats actively decided that, no, we don't want to do that, right? We want to obstruct, and now we have to go into the neighborhoods. The other alternative is that we have to do nothing, right? And that's not optional. We can't do nothing. If Democrats say, hey, we don't want to work with the Trump administration, and we do nothing, then they win. We don't get any mass deportations. So we have to do what we got to do because of Democrats. If Democrats work with the Trump administration, we wouldn't have to do what we're doing right now. But Biden let in 10 plus million people, and we have to fix it. That was extreme. Democrats are taking extreme measures to prevent us from fixing an extreme policy that happened under the Biden administration. So yeah, we have to do extreme things in order to fix it. But if you are here legally, right, actually here legally, if you are a citizen and you're Latino, you don't have anything to worry about. Oh, somebody got detained for a couple hours. I know it's unfortunate, but that's not the fault of the Trump administration. That's the fault of the Democrats, because it wouldn't be happening if they cooperated with the Trump administration. We would be able to target criminals better if these sanctuary cities cooperated and these blue states cooperated. So that's what a lot of Latinos got to understand. But the reality is unfortunately, the liberal media will never explain that. They will never acknowledge that, hey, a lot of this is happening because Democrats refuse to cooperate with the Trump administration, and they'll just pretend as if, the Trump administration is racist and they're just trying to round up Latino citizens and kick everybody out that's brown. And that's not what they're doing. They're trying to round up as many criminals as possible. The reality is that they can't do that without help from these sanctuary cities in a targeted way. So therefore, the operations have to be less targeted. That's just reality. That's just how it works. It's either that or do nothing. And doing nothing is not an option. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.